Hello and welcome everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to our first community demo of 2022. So by the looks of things, we are back live, but if you have any problems on the live stream, if there's excessive buffering, if it's dropping network packets, whatever, if it's uncomfortable for you to watch, just please post a message either in the YouTube live chat here on the side panel. Here, I'll type a message so you can see, or else post a message on the Foreman channel on LibreChat, and I will post a link and you can come join us on the Google Meet. All of the people here to demo today are really hoping to hear from you, hoping to hear comments and answer questions about their work over the last while. So please do use the live chat function, say hi to us as well. That's also good. And just before we begin the demos today, we have a few announcements. So just quite literally just before the end of the year, probably around the time a lot of people went on holidays, Foreman 3.1 was released. And in case you missed that, we have in case you missed that, I posted the release announcement. You know, that release contained over 100 bug fixes and several enhancements. So if you have, just take a look through that. If you haven't upgraded yet, it's definitely worth your while. And just if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask or to post to our community forum. Also, which is very closely related to the 3.1 release and further releases. There's been a lot of work done on the host details page, and I'm going to ask Ron to just give you some of the highlights from 3.1 and also maybe an idea of what you can expect in the nightly branch at the moment with that. So Ron, if you're
Hi
here.
everyone. Yeah, let me share my screen. So in 3.1, the new host page was added. There are a lot of features already demoed, so hopefully I can go over them. Basically, if you haven't seen it, each plugin can extend the overview tab with a card, and the plugins can even choose the order that this card will show up. And for example, there are Katello plugins here and Insights plugin here. And there are even more. I just didn't load all of them. And there's also an option to add like a main tab for each plugin. I don't have much data on this machine, but for example, Insights has its own table, and you can go to like to the regular Insights page. The same with Katello, and basically it's a view for the host. So I think it's much better than the old one, but still some stuff is still missing. So you can switch to the old view. It's still there. By the way, there are also a lot of actions here. You can go here to the legacy UI, and you can even edit the host. So in 3.1, it wasn't the default. Like if you click on the host name, you will go to the old page. But from 3.2, when you click on it, you will see the new page. And if you really prefer not to go into this page, I'm not sure why, but you can change it in the settings. If you click on new host details UI, here you can toggle the value. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. And if you have any questions about that, just please feel free to ask Ron during this session. And I will just go back to my slides for a second. They are coming up now. So that was everything on the host details page for today. And so a lot of people this week have been asking, what's the story with Katello 4.3? And so here today we have our very own Chris Roberts, who's going to talk to us, give us a little bit of an update on that. It's just so Chris, what is the story with 4.3?
So the GA, it's on RC4 right now. The GA is in the works. There's a issue right now with the VAS pipeline that Ian was looking at yesterday. Other than that, though, once that's resolved, it should be good to go. The gem and everything is built. So it's in the works as far as going to GA. There's been a lot of work on it. So I've looked at the changelog and pulled a few things that I'll talk about or give highlights on. But if you want to see everything, there's definitely go check out the changelog. So there's been a lot of UI work, as Ron mentioned. So we've got our basic table for packages that's been complete. The content view that's been switched over to the new UI. So the old content view UI is gone. We have support for generic content types in the UI. There's still more work going on in the content view UI as well. They're wrapping up stuff in that area. The traces page, that's 100% complete. It's a one-to-one parity compared to the old page. We have our host details errata, which I'll be demoing today, and then content view overview card on the main page, on the new host details page. And then repository sets, that basic table has been complete. And I'm sure there's more and more. I didn't want to take up too much time on the demo. And as far as other things that aren't UI related, we've got OS tree support pretty much almost done. It's in there for the most part. GraphQL support for host collections. One of the big things is we've got support for connected inter-satellite sync or inter-server sync, ISS. So we've got the UI set up for that. Jonathan did a lot of work getting that to work where you can sync two Katello instances from each other. You can actually delete a repository if it's included in a content view version. So that was added. And one of the other things I was looking through the changelog was you now have the ability to sync on a smart proxy an individual content view or repository instead of just syncing the whole, what do you want to call it, the lifecycle environment. So that's really nice if you've got like a smart proxy in an area that has a really low latency. So those were the highlights that I looked through the changelog. Like I said, there's a lot more in that changelog. But yeah, it's in the works. It should be GA here soon.
That's great, Chris. Thank you very much. I'll post the link to the changelog in the YouTube description after I finish. I haven't done that yet, but I'll add that in case anybody's watching back and wants to read along. So thank you very much for the update. I appreciate it. And thanks, Ron. Thank you both for helping me with my introductory pieces. So that's everything for now. Only a few announcements because we're at the beginning of the year. Joyful time. So our first demo today comes from Leosh, and Leosh is going to talk to us about template helpers. And I had a good laugh at this, Leosh, I must say, with the truthy and falsy. First time I've ever seen. First time I've ever seen like that.
All right. Okay, let me share the screen. It's going to be a quick demo. Because yes, as you can hear from the names, the main feature of these two helpers is to decide if the value passed to them is true or false. The logic behind that is pretty simple. We cast the value to Boolean and compare it and decide if it's true or false. Here are some examples how they work. Truthy, of course, returns true or false. You can actually also pass the number. If it's 1, the value became false. If it's true, sorry. If it's a 0, it will become a false. You can also pass the string. Sometimes when you, for example, pass Boolean values from the URL parameters, sometimes they are strings. So if you post true and false as a string, it also correctly check the value. And yes, of course, null value returns false. And that was the truthy, and the falsy is just opposite with also the logic casting value to the boolean and compare it if it's a false. And yes, those are two small macros that you can now use in all the templates, I think. So yeah, that's everything from me.
Okay, doke. Okay, so my page, I should thank you very much, Lesh. Let me just for 1 minute, just pause, and I will just check for any questions. Usually the first demo doesn't have questions. One thing that is happening is that Maximilian, okay, so Maximilian, you asked to go sooner, but I don't see the change. I don't see that the change actually ever got made, and I had already forgotten about it. And I have 2 requests at the moment to change the order from Maximilian and Ron. So maybe because of the time change, I'll let Ron go first with his demo, and then you next, Maximilian, if that's okay. And I will make note to self, you are next. So please, Ron, if you want to take over. You're going to talk to us today about
Here I can show
pagination.
you
Yeah.
the night that arriving, and you're already the kids here screaming. So I'll do it fast.
Perfect.
Okay, so we are shifting the pagination in all tables in Foreman to use the PF4 implementation. Patternfly 4, you can check their website. Basically, we use all of the props, all of the arcs that are passed to their component. We just wrap it in Foreman in one place. And the reason for it is that in each Foreman plugin, there was a different implementation for the pagination, and each page looked different, and even like the titles and translation for pagination. So I can show you one example in one of our plugin. In this PR, I changed it to consume pagination from core, and you can see we dropped several helpers that wasn't needed. The reason I'm showing it is just to alert that things might break after we add it to core. But basically, a few plugins already basing themselves on one helper, so it will be only one import, and yeah, that's it basically.
Thank you, Ron. So if you have any questions for Ron, just please post them. I'm just taking a look at the stream now, and we're usually like maybe half a minute behind or something like that, Ron. So we can, for the moment, we can just move on. And if there's any questions, I can follow up with you. So thank you very much, Ron, for that. And up next then is Maximilian.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm also gonna try and share. You should be able to see my presentation.
Looks great, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't demo anything, so I've created a short presentation. I want to talk about modularizing documentation, as in fully separating the content and the structure. So first, why? Well, I think in the long run, it'll be easier to maintain. So once we have a relatively perfect one-to-one mapping from each heading that you can see online when you go to docs.foreman.org, you will find one source file with the content that contains the heading and the text just below it. It will also make it much easier for us to reuse existing documentation, so specific concepts or procedures, and will result in smaller source files. So while working on this, I've came across source files that are like 500 lines and longer, and then it's really, really hard to find out where stuff belongs and goes to, and which level you are currently at. So this has been changed to one file with one heading, meaning the level offset. So if you have, or if you want to have a level 2 heading, will be handled within the assemblies. The assemblies are basically lists of files, and they can offset the heading. So you can, make it like +1, +2, etc., etc. And in the long run, I think it'll allow us to create more, for example, operating system or compute resource or configuration management tool specific guides. Then to the how and what. So what does this mean? As I mentioned before, I was aiming for one level, one heading per file, and that means there is no content and no headings in the assemblies. But as I said, they're just a lists of files basically. And I've also tried to make it more standardized. So for example, in the file name is usually the title plus dashes, and the anchor should by now be consisting of underscores. And while doing this, I've also tried to standardize certain Hammer CLI parameters. For example, the location is or should always be my location, or the operating system or architecture is in the same is set in the same way. And I've where I remembered, I've sorted it alphabetically and made each parameter have its own line, which makes it easier to read and easier to change. And a couple of stats. So the first 2 lines show you a commit that was the last commit before we started merging the modularization PRs, which meant we had roughly 230 files that were in the so-called topics folders, which mostly meant that they were exclusive for a specific guide. So for example, for the content management guide. Afterwards, so the current status of master is there's less than 60 files within those topics directories for all guides. And on the module side, you can clearly see that the difference is even bigger. So not only did we just copy files around, which would be boring and easy, no, we also created new files. So we've now have over 700 modules, and those modules each are one specific procedure or concept or reference, etc. And last slide from me. So what will this mean for the future? So basically, we're hoping for, or I'm hoping for more contributions. So maybe from developers. So if you see something, you Google the documentation, you find out it's maybe slightly wrong or outdated. You should be able to easily find this now in the Foreman documentation, because the heading you're basically viewing is also or refers directly to one file. And with the overall structure of the documentation, we're hopefully moving towards more but smaller guides, which translates from being easy to write, then also to being easy to read. So we can, I think, improve the user experience there. And regarding contributions again, I think because you only need to search for a heading, it should be much easier to make contributions, or maybe even the first contributions in Foreman documentation or in the open source community as a whole. And then kind of as a bonus, I would say it'll allow us in the future to run bulk commands on content based on a file name prefix. So each file name has a prefix, for example, snip for snippet, which is incidentally a file without a heading, but it's a file that is included somewhere else. So for example, a list of requirements. Or you could add metadata to all procedures, because you can easily find out where those procedures are, because you just need to run a find command in guides common modules, and then just look for files that start with proc underscore. Yeah, and something that maybe we should work on, there are a couple so-called empty files, which only consist of an anchor and a heading. And that basically means somewhere in our documentation, there's basically two headings just next to each other without any content in between. We can easily find out where that is and add content. So yeah, that's all to come, I would say. Yeah, and that's it from my side. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or just to open a GitHub issue or make comments on a PR, etc. Yeah, thanks. And last but not least, last sentence. Thanks to everybody that reviewed those PRs.
Well, Maximilian, thank you so much. That was a lot to. I came back from the break at the beginning of the year to inbox full of PRs, but there has been other people helping with those reviews as well. So thank you so much, Maximilian. Everything that you're doing there looks really sound and really safe. It'll be interesting. I'm most curious, I suppose, to see from a community perspective how easy people will find it to navigate that, and whether we will have to put some additional maybe support in place, or create a tour that we post into our README. Lukasz has suggested that several times, so that people can find their way around. Just in the chat, Vendula says yay for smaller guides, which is always, I think it is quite handy. We do have additional work to do on the look and feel of our index for the community, but this is all fantastic. This is all in the right direction. So thank you very much. If I'll check or wait and ask, is there any questions or comments for Maximilian? And if not so far, I will release you. And if anyone else has anything, they can post later and we can discuss it on Discourse. So thank you, Maximilian. So up next then we have Lukasz, and Lukasz is going to talk to us for an unknown amount of time about only messing. He's going to talk to us about the Discover Image EL8 build 4.0 that people have been waiting on. So in your own time, lzap.
Yeah, so I have an announcement and also a quick update on reports. And I like to thank Maximilian as well, and the tremendous amount of work you do. And a quick update on documentation, because you may already know that we have still, it's now 2 years, documentation for Foreman, which is separate, which is on our deformer.org, and then we have docs deformer.org. This is unfortunate, but I'm doing my best to find time and finish and complete the migration. I think I'm really close. I have prepared a script that actually transforms the old documentation to ASCII doc, and it looks very, very nice. There's a thread on Discourse about that. But prior to that, I think it was Iwad who expressed a valid point that the navigation, there's no navigation. Like if you open up a guide, you need to click on back button, which seems okay in like 1997 or something, but probably not now. So there's another patch I need to finish, and it is a bit of JavaScript, embedded JavaScript that embeds into guides. So there is some kind of a navigation bar on the top, and this all is temporary because we also, the building system we use, it's just a temporary set of make files. Because we long term we would like to migrate to something solid like Antora, which is a documentation site builder, but we are not there yet. We would like to give our emerging Red documentation team a little bit time to breathe, because there are new hires coming, so we don't want to do Antora migration let's say this year or now. So I like to finish off the navigation bar, so at least we have something, and then I'd like to continue and working on the migration, like converting the old guides to the new site, and then we could finally start working from there and improving and modular, making modules and trying to improve the Foreman core documentation and Katello documentation, and it could all work together. So yeah, quick update. Still on my to-do, but I'd like to do this. It's very close. I think the blocker is now the document, the navigation. It's a lot of JavaScript. I'm not good in this, but I think Ron helped me a lot. So yeah. So quick announcement. So we have a Foreman discovery 4.0. It's actually 4.03. I had to do a couple of bug fixes. And this one is the first discovery release image that is based on L8. Actually, this one is upstream, that is CentOS 8 stream. What's changing is, of course, the base OS. It's completely different. It's new. It's new rel. What's new is also the build process. It's completely a different tool. Instead of live CD creator, it is now a live media creator, which is a completely new tool that Fedora uses for building a live CD for Fedora Workstation and other spins, and it also is slightly bigger, unfortunately, because L7 discovery image was around 300 megabytes. This one is around 500 megabytes. It's unfortunate, but if you didn't know, amount of kernel code is like insanely going up. Like for the last 8 years, I would say amount of code in kernel doubled. It's like the kernel itself is small, but you have all the drivers and firmware. And I don't want to remove firmware from a discover image. I already remove things like sound cards or 3D graphics. That's probably not needed. Also, Wi-Fi. We remove Wi-Fi drivers and firmware. It's a bunch of code, because servers, I assume, I hope, please don't tell me someone is discovering Wi-Fi servers, but that's not there for a very long time now. So probably you would such users will probably open a bug. So so it's big, and I'm not sure what I can do to make it smaller. So it's unfortunate. Maybe there are some plans to maybe get rid of Ruby and Smart Proxy and Puppet, because I think what Discovery does is not much, and I think this could be probably replaced by a simple Python script that could do all the work. So anyway, this is Discovery if you haven't seen it, and the way it works is pretty simple. Just quick reminder. I know we don't have time, but you go to Discovery hosts. Here's your host. You can click and see all the details. You can provision it, and if you click on provision, when you associate a host group, assign a host group, and create a host, this works reliably well. It will start provisioning. There's also auto provisioning if you have defined your or discover rules. You can define rules, like if CPU number is greater than something. That works reliably well as well. So you can just click on auto provision, or auto provisioning can be also automatic, so on discovery. I just want to do quick warning, like if you do this, if you click on customize host, this is like a very ugly old hack. This is actually an edit host form that is hacked so it looks like discovered host, and some things don't work. Like obviously I can't change the organization location here, and some things are broken here and there. And hopefully this year we would like to work on the new host edit form, and hopefully this will be designed in a way that with discovery in mind. So we will fix this. I don't want to invest much time in here, so I highly recommend to just use the provision button, and then if you select send a stream and click on create host, this will work reliably well. You can't change host name here, but you can do that using if you select host and do a select action change host name. There's a possibility to do that. So discovery 8.0, test it and report back. And there's other thing I want to share with you, and that is a host reports. This is a new plugin. We are changing how reports work in Foreman core. These are configuration reports, and we have implemented Ansible and Puppet reports. The reason for that is performance. We want to make sure that reports are no longer an issue. And this is a very early prototype of the plugin. Don't mind the user interface. I think Maria from our user experience design team will present you today an update on pages, how they will look like. So this is like a temporary look. But I just wanted to give you an update how it would feel. Like this is an index page of reports. As you can see, we have now, this is going to be named on the final design, I think it's called summary. And we have three actually columns, because after a long discussion, we have decided that what's very useful is to know for Puppet users if a report was eventful, meaning that there were some changes. So we have a change, which is a number representing amount of resources that have been changed. For Ansible, that is very, very same. The Ansible also provides this information if something was changed or not. And no change and is exactly what you think is like there was a success. It was a successful match, or it was a configuration tool did not update anything, but it is success. And failure is obviously there was a problem. Now this naming convention I had to. Previously on my proposal it was changed, unchanged, and failure, but failed. But change is obviously active record, like reserved word. You can't use a change as a field, so I had to rename this this morning. But we can present it if we agree that change is better. We can present now. What's interesting in the new design is every single report has also keywords. In the Maria's proposal, you'll see that there's another column called keywords, and these are for searching. So you can search. Of course, you can search for by change, like maybe there were more change than 7, something like that. I don't have such a report, but maybe. So you can search by that. Maybe failure. There's failed is bigger than 1. Oh, doesn't probably work at that moment. Right. So searching by just status is probably not enough. You would like to maybe search for something like in Puppet. You have a report that is out of sync. There was out of sync reported, and for this there is a mechanism called keywords. So every report can be assigned 0 to n keywords, and these are just tags. You can think of them like a tags. Basically strings that are associated with records. So for example, for Puppet, I have out of sync tags. So this means that such reports I had out of sync reported. Or what can be pretty useful is, let's say Ansible, for example. Ansible has the same. For example, if there was a failure in a particle module, here it's Ansible built-in package, I can actually search for such reports. So keywords are actually implemented in a way that they actually contain the Puppet resource that failed or Ansible module that failed. So this way we keep the flexibility, the good flexibility of searching for reports, but it is also fast. This is designed in a way that this is by order of magnitude faster to import. So reports will no longer be issue and will no longer be a big database tables or anything like that. Yeah, we also have details, but these are again temporary implementation. They will look much better. And I think this is it. Unless there are any questions, Maria will update you on the nice interface, how it look like actually.
Thank you so much, Lukasz. As far as I can see, let me just do a quick look. All I see is positive feedback for Maximilian and for yourself on the documentation efforts. So thank you again very much for that. And I do not see additional questions for you, Lukasz. So I am going to welcome Maria to speak next, please.
So thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Lukasz, for introduction. Let me share my screen. And what I'm going to show you, it's host detail page tab called Puppet, and also a reports page in general. So here we go. I know, like on a first look, it looks super busy, but actually it's not. What Lukasz showed you, it's this small table. Right now we are in host detail page, in Puppet, in tab reports. So firstly, this table was showed to you by Lukasz. It's like when it was reported at. So if you click on this link, you will get to the detail page of that report. Now there is this overall status and then summary. So as you can see in this report, overall status is failed. And in summary, you can see there was five failed stuff, and also 2 changed and 2 that were unchanged. So what I would love your feedback on are mainly these icons, because we were after a great discussion that was driven by Lukasz in Discord. We ended up with these 3 statuses: failed, changed, unchanged, as he said, and we are looking for icons for those. So fail is pretty obvious, but changed, should it be like this or no? Do you feel there can be something different, and be specific if you can? But change, I use this because it's changed, so it can be interesting for you as a user, but it's not like something is wrong, but it may be. So what else we see here? There are keywords. If you click on them, you will see a popover with presented keywords for that report. Here you can filter by overall status. You can also filter by event flow runs, which will, of course, filter out unchanged and empty. And now we are getting to these 2 cards. In Puppet tab, you want to see Puppet details and also last configuration status, which is actually this very first report, but in details. You can even see Puppet metrics, which was one of requests that came from the discussion in Discord. And you can also see keywords for that last report. What I find like super great is if you are not interested in all those information, you can either expand the view or shrink it this way. So now it's not that busy. This was for Puppet tab and Reports tab. And if you click on the on the report, you will get to the report detail page. So we have the same as in previous UI, which is like level, resources, messages. This table is quite the same, but we added name of the host. We can see all the reports for that specific host. And also there is again this this card that is telling you about the main features of this report. And possibly we can add a summary card with some chart displaying details in time. It's open still for request, discussion, or suggestions. And this is the last mock. I'm finishing. So this is what actually Lukasz showed you. This is the reports page, main index reports page. Again, table with quick toggle buttons, which suit as filters. And also you can filter by Ansible, by resources, by Ansible or Puppet. You can still filter by and search query, so that functionality will be still there. And that's the end of my presentation. One more thing, sorry. In Discord there is a thread called Puppet tab in host details page. I put there the newest mocks, so please, you should have a link in a chat. So please comment or write there any comments or concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. I had that link posted, so anybody watching can have a look at that. We have a. Never mind. Let's. I don't see any questions for Maria. Thank you very much, and everybody knows where to find that thread afterwards if they are looking to leave some feedback. So thank you again, and we shall start our Katello demos. So first up we have Justin, and Justin, welcome back to demoing, and he's going to be talking about a new repo mirroring policy.
Thanks, Melanie. Just wanted to sort of mention on Katello 4.0 and older, repositories had this option referred to as mirror on sync. And the purpose of that was if it was enabled, if content was removed from the upstream repo, it would be also removed from the local repo every time you synced. So like, for example, CentOS 7 doesn't keep every kernel around. They may only keep one or two. And so when they remove the older versions, if mirror on sync is true, then those older versions will be removed locally. And conversely, if it's at default, then the local repo and library will always keep those older versions. But even with this enabled to true, any snapshots in your content views would still have those older versions. This is just for the library repo. As part of Katello 4.1, we moved to Pulp 3.14. And with that, they added a feature and sort of reused that same option. And what that feature was that it also mirrored the metadata down from the upstream repositories. So not only was it keeping the repositories in sync from a content perspective, but the metadata was exactly the same on the local system or on your local Katello server as it was in the upstream repository. And that had a lot of benefits in that it was faster, and it would also preserve things like metadata signatures, which are becoming more common and popular and important. So there's definitely benefits for that. What the Pulp team did not necessarily foresee was that this feature where metadata was mirrored could not be used in a lot of cases. And some of those cases are, for example, if the repository is referring to packages at some unusual location, such as 4 directories up and down another subpath or on another server completely. So in these situations, if you're running Katello 4.1 or 4.2, you'll get an error if you have mirror on sync turned on that says, hey, this repository is incompatible with mirror on sync, set it to false, which is a workaround, but it means that if you don't want mirrored metadata because the repository is incompatible with it, you also cannot get the mirroring of content exactly. So to fix this, the Pulp team has added a new option to repositories for syncing that Katello is calling mirroring policy. And mirroring policy has 3 options. The first is additive, which is what you would have if mirror on sync before was set to false. You have mirror content only, which is what you had before, or what you had with Katello 4.0 and older, where mirror on sync was set to true. And then you have what we call mirror complete. And that is basically what we had with mirror on sync in 4.1 and 4.2. And so that gives you both options. So this gives more fine-grained control over mirroring to the user to let them pick sort of the features that they want. Ideally, users would be able to use 3 because that's sort of the best option. But since the reality is that most repositories don't support metadata mirroring, we also now have option 2. And so what this looks like in the UI, when you go to create a repository, if you select the yum option, way down here under download policy, we now have this mirroring policy, and you can select from these 3 options. And there's convenient text here to remind you of what they do, in case you forget, but we now have these 3 options. If you select a different type, such as, we'll do Docker here, you only have the first 2, since metadata mirroring doesn't make sense for, say, Docker. It only that's only supported under yum. And the old option is still supported in the API and Hammer for backwards compatibility purposes. It will be removed at some point. But so if you have any automation set up, that should continue to work. But for now, or if you're using the UI or you want to use the new options, this is the way to go with mirroring policy. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Justin. Just quickly look around, but I don't think we have any questions. Nope. So thanks again, and we shall proceed to our next demo, which is from Ian, and Ian is going to talk to us about on-demand repository cleaning.
All right. Thanks, Melanie. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, cool. Looks like I am able to share a single screen. Perfect. All right. So what I'll be talking to y'all about today is a new feature that I like to call on-demand repository cleanup. So if folks have used on-demand repositories before, you know that when you sync your repository, none of the content is actually downloaded until you actually go and request it to be downloaded. And that's where essentially you're trying to download an RPM, and that tells Pulp that it needs to download it from the upstream repository. But then it saves it to your file system. And before, there really wasn't a great way to clean up these RPMs that were downloaded. Like if you if you sync a huge repository and suddenly you need a bunch of them, but then you don't need them anymore, you just have this wasted disk space there. So now anyway, you can clean up those on-demand RPMs. And I will show you where to do that. But before I get into it, there's one kind of disclosure. for custom repositories that don't save older versions of RPMs, it might not be a good idea to do on-demand cleanup, because once you clean it up, the RPM will be gone, and if it's no longer in the upstream repo, you will not be able to get it again. So just keep that in mind. But okay, so the first place that you can do repo cleanup is if you're looking on a repository screen here. You go to select action, and then you can do reclaim space. The other place where you can do a repo on-demand repo cleanup is you could do it bulk from the repositories page. So you could select all these and then click the reclaim space button, and that'll reclaim space from all these repositories. And then lastly, an even bigger option is if you go to a smart proxy where you normally would synchronize it over here, you can click on this, and then you can click reclaim space. So you can reclaim space from the whole smart proxy. Now that proxy that I was looking at was a content mirror. And if you go to your Pulp primary smart proxy, so this isn't the one that is a mirror somewhere else. This is the one that's hosting your library content. You can also reclaim space. And we have a little warning here just to give you some more info about the fact that things will be deleted. But you can click this button to reclaim space. So you have a whole bunch of different ways to reclaim space on your machine. And now let me just give you a quick demo. So I have this here zoo repository. I cleaned space before, there's nothing downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to where I have it hosted, and I'm just going to download 3 RPMs. And you'll be able to see in the task which RPMs were done. And actually, I downloaded these 3 before, so let me bring it up to 5 just to make it different. Cool. So I downloaded these RPMs. Now I'm going to go to select action, then I'm going to run reclaim space. We're going to get a warning. We're going to reclaim the space. It is done. Now let's take a look at the details. We're going to look at the dying flow console. We see the reclaim space action here. And if you go down into the progress report, I'll make this bigger, you can see there's this reclaim space action, pulp task, and you can see total is 5. So the space was cleaned up and your disk has been saved. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple feature, and I hope people will find it useful. Thanks.
Lovely, and thank you very much. I'll just check quickly for questions. I am aware of the time. Justin jinxed us earlier saying that things are going to go over time. Let me see. No, I think we're all good, so we can move on to our next demo. Just let me get that up. So we have Jonathan back with us to talk about new inter-server sync UI. So hi, Jonathan.
Hey, Melanie, thank you. So I'll try to be quick, knowing we're limited on time. Excuse me. So inter-server sync is a brand new feature in Katello 4.3, so please try it out if this sounds interesting to you once you do upgrade to Katello 4.3. So inter-server sync, what is it all about? It's about syncing content directly from one Katello instance to another. You might be wondering, well, isn't that the same as what Partha had demoed and given a deep dive in a little while back? That was import-export, which is different because the use case for import-export is when there is no network connectivity between your 2 Foreman and Katello instances. So you would generate an artifact on one, physically bring it over to another on like a USB stick or something like that, if you are in an air-gapped scenario. Inter-server sync implies that there is a network connection and some secondary Foreman and Katello server is receiving content over the network from some parent Foreman and Katello server. Right now, this only supports Red Hat content. So let me show you how to get this thing set up and working. If you come to the subscriptions page and open your Manage Manifest modal here, there's a new tab, which is called CDN configuration. And you may notice that this looks a little bit familiar to what was on the manifest tab in a previous release. There was this somewhat mysterious URL text field, which always said cdn.redhat.com, because most of the time that's where you are syncing your Red Hat content from. And why would someone ever change that? Well, prior to this feature, no one ever really would. I don't believe it was ever documented when you would change this, but if you were really clever, maybe took a look at how things worked or had a strong understanding of perhaps Pulp 2, you would know that changing this URL to another Foreman and Katello server, you could actually sync content on like Katello 3.18 and earlier, for example. But it wasn't really a feature that we kind of marketed or shared or recommended. But now it's really something at the forefront. So let me show you how this works. Of course, in this organization I've got here, this is the default setup. I'm just syncing content from the Red Hat CDN, and you'll see some new fields here. None of them are populated. Since we're running short on time, I'm going to pop over to my other organization and show you the CDN configuration. I've got it pointed to another Katello instance called CentOS7 Katello Devel. You'll notice currently run CentOS7 Katello nightly. These are the two boxes I've got set up, and I've populated the excuse me, username, password, org label, and something called the SSLCA content credential. These are all the fields needed to establish a network connection to get the data and information that we need to be able to sync that content. This SSLCA content credential corresponds to the default CA certificate that exists on the, let's call it the upstream Katello server. So I took it from my Katello Devel server because I want to sync into this one, which is the Katello nightly server. So previously I came over here and I created this Devel server CA and gave it the content of that certificate so that we can establish an SSL connection. Now here's where this feature gets, I think, really cool. Now that we've set up this CDN configuration, we can come over to the Red Hat repositories UI. And ordinarily, this UI is enabling content or understanding what content is available to enable from the Red Hat CDN. But now it will take that content and that understanding from the upstream server that I want to sync content from. So on my Devel server, I've enabled the Red Hat Satellite Tools repo. You can see it here. And this is the one that I'm going to sync. So let me type in tools 6.9. And I believe that was for rel8 x86-64. So this feature requires that any repository that you wish to enable is already enabled on the upstream server. So if I try to enable perhaps this one here, which is not enabled, we should get some kind of error that alludes to that fact. And there it is, repository with this label was not found in the upstream organization default organization, which maps back to this server over here. Okay, so now that I've enabled Satellite Tools for 6.9, as usual, I will see that product and repository in my list here. One thing that's different, if you look at the details, is where this upstream URL ordinarily would say cdn.redhat.com, we can see that it reflects the URL of my upstream Katello server. And so now I should have everything in place to be able to sync the content from this repo. All right, it looks like we added 15 RPMs and 1 errata. Let's see if that's really the case when we go back here. And we did sync it successfully, and that content is there. So yeah, that is the desired outcome. So once again, we were able to sync this content from another Katello server. When would you do this? Well, you might have maybe some kind of restriction on your second Katello server. It can't speak to the internet. Well, how do you want to get your content? You could use import export. But if you are able to connect to another Katello server in your own infrastructure, there are some benefits to be able to, sync that content directly, right? A little less overhead in creating artifacts, moving them from one host to another. For example, this feature is so new, in fact, that we are, continuing to kind of look at it and scrutinize it and see how we can improve it. So even in Katello 4.4, you'll see some changes here, and I think we'll be having some demos coming up shortly about how we're improving this experience even further. And by the way, this does all work through Hammer, setting up the configuration here, but I won't be demoing that today. So please let me know what your questions are. Contact me directly or however you choose to give me some feedback. Thanks.
Great, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that. I am aware that we are at time. At the same time, people are still watching. The numbers are relatively low. I think that if the two people that are left to demo, which is Chris and Andrew, are comfortable to go ahead, I would like to continue if that's okay. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
sounds good with me.
Excellent. So thanks again. I don't see any questions for you, Jonathan, but I'm sure there will be in time. So Chris, I think you are
All right.
first.
Let me go ahead and present. It'll be real quick.
Don't worry about that.
Alrighty. So let me know if you can see the screen.
It's coming up. Looks good.
Okay, so today I'm gonna demo the host errata overview card and the new host details page. So I've got a RHEL 7.8 machine here. Let me click on this guy. And so right now we've got an installable errata overview. So we can see how many errata we have. We have 193 errata. This is a RHEL 7, I believe 7.8 box, and so it's the RHEL 7.9 repo is synced, hence why there's so many of them. We have a total here. We have it broken down with the nice little errata icons. We've got a color-coded legend here, and what's really nice is you can actually click on the different parts of the pie chart, and it will actually show you what is what as well as the legend here. Right now, if you click on any of these, it goes to the old page, and this was the reason behind this is the new page. What we want to do is actually have it take it to the new page, the new errata section, based on the search queries. So if I did security advisories, it would show only security. But right now we've got a card in place on our backlog to allow the new page to take in search parameters. Right now it doesn't, so that's why we defaulted to the old one. But once that's done in place, once that's fixed, this will be switched over to the new errata page, and you can click on these, and it will take you to whatever search that you did. And that's all I had.
That's perfect, Chris. Thank you very much. It's good to see Tom Nook is doing well. There's a comment from Jeremy. In Katello 4.4, the links will go to the new page. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you know.
Yeah. It just means like if I clicked on the total, it would just take me to the new errata page, and if I clicked on any of those legends, it would take me to the new errata page with that search filter. I just didn't know what release or what the status of that card is, but I know there was. That's why it hasn't been linked up yet, because we just need to adapt the new page to take in search parameters.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So up next, then, our final demo of the day is Andrew, and Andrew's going to talk to us about new Content View UI version details page, actions, and generic content.
Hello. So my good friend Chris did mention that we had added the generic content page recently, and some support for generic content types. So I'll go over very quickly just 2 of those that we've added, and I can show you them in our version details page. You can see them here with additional content. Python packages and the OSG refs. And if we click into those, we will get into their pages. So I can just do a quick jump over here. So there is a new menu item, other content types, on the tab here. And on the left, you have the option to choose among your different content types that you have available and jump into each one. And there's details about them. And you can see, once this loads, which repositories they come from. So there's that, the support for that. Within the content view itself, you can go to content view version, go into the details page, and have a very similar overview for your particular version of what content you have available for those generic content types. This will automatically be generated here. This is forward-facing, so if we do want to add a ton of new or different types of content types in the future, we're just adding to a config to generate more options for these, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to demo today was just adding this actions bar here, as opposed to within your actual versions drop down here. So if you have a version 3.0, you want to promote it, you can now do that right from within our details view here, if you wanted to go ahead and do that for some reason. That is all for me. Questions, anyone?
Thank you very much, Andrew. I will just have a look now. Let me see. Okie doke. No, I think we're okay. I was just looking at the conversation between Justin and lzap on the channel, but I think we are fine. Everyone, thank you very much for coming along today and being the first part of the first demo of 2022. Very much appreciated. And for everybody who came along and said hi on the live chat and also were with us watching. If anyone is watching back at a later stage and you have questions or comments about any of the work, feel free to either post to the Foreman community or leave a YouTube comment and we will get back to you. Thank you very much and we will see you all soon. Bye-bye.